Hi. I am exhausted. I've been outside working all day. It's raining now, but I have been working, and so I'm still in my work clothes. And I'm sitting with my legs close to the camera, so they look huge, but I'm tired, so I might, let me see, maybe I can move this a little bit. I'll move it over here a little bit. It's still my big old leg in the video. Let's see if I can make you all sick. Okay. Yeah, I have makeup on, because I'm working out in the yard all day. We are looking at late adulthood finally. We're into late life. This tells us where we are in the semester. Yep, we're toward the end. We know by the age in which we are whenever we're going through all these changes. So it is chapter 17, physical development in late life. And late life starts anywhere from 60, 65, and it goes to 125 years. This is the longest potential stage of our development in our entire life. I mean, think of where we started. We started with infants, 2-year time span, 0 to 2. Then we did early childhood, 2 to 6, 4 years. Then we did mid-late childhood, 6 to 12, 6 years. 6. Then we did 12 to 20, 8 years. Yeah. And then early adulthood was 20. And then middle adulthood was 20, 25. And now we're 60, 65. That's crazy. Now, of course, the last stage we think goes potentially to 125, but we don't think anybody really lives that long. That's like the maximum possibility for a human being. And every species has a maximum possibility, and we call it a lifespan. So you'll see that in the notes, lifespan. That's the most a species can live. So we think ours is 125, and that changes all the time. That's gone up since I've been teaching. So it's what's possible. The lifespan is always the biggest number, and it's what's possible. My hair is filthy. So, most of us are not going to make it anywhere near there. Average life expectancy is somewhere around 78, 79, 80. So, really this stage of life lasts 20 years, something like that. Not really 60, 65. So we have lifespan, which is how much is possible for a species to live. But then we have life expectancy, which is what is probable that a particular individual in that species will live. So it's what's likely. Lifespan's possible, life expectancy is probable. And that's where it's, it varies. It varies if you're male or female. We know girls live longer in general. It varies what your majority or minority status is. I think minorities live a shorter life expectancy, often because they've had a more stressful life, less income, less education, and that often ends up with worse healthcare options and worse health. So now, when we were born in 1900, you can hear a thunderstorm. Our life expectancy was 47. Like, I'm 48, so I'd be gone by now. And it didn't mean that we didn't live that long. Of course, that is true to some degree, and we had a much harder life, and we had a lot more health issues, infectious diseases that killed us, and we didn't have as good of food. We didn't have good medicine, for sure. We didn't know enough about the human body. We weren't very clean. So we got all kinds of variables that make us live longer now than we used to. So it wasn't even necessarily that we made it to 47. It was just that so many of us died younger. It brought the average down. And we died for lots of reasons. My grandmother was born in 1925, and she had 13 siblings. She was in the middle. There was a lot of deaths. A lot of them had kidney stones and died from kidney stones in infancy and adolescence, even in early adulthood. I mean, we don't die from kidney stones now, I don't think. She even went through a period of time where she was sick, and she had some, but she survived. Just her and her youngest one left, and that's it. Now 13. She's 95. Her youngest is like 80-something. I don't know how old she is. All right. So longevity, how long will we live? How long can we stretch this out for? What influences longevity? We've already mentioned a couple of things, obviously, good food, healthcare, but your book has a great, oh, I should have got the page number. It's like 256 or something. It has a great quiz in there. I want you to go use it, unless it freaks you out and you're a little superstitious or it wigs you out, then don't do it. But you can go to your book and take the little quiz, and it's a running total. Girls, I think, start with number 81, and guys start with, I think, 78. It says it in there. And then you add or subtract years for each of the variables that are on that quiz. And each of those variables are things that influence longevity. So I have those in our notes, because what we normally do is we do it in class, we have fun. We do it in class, and then I just give a highlight blurb of, I'll show you, see. I just give you a highlight blurb of what the topic is that's involved in longevity, so that you take notes on that, so you know what the factors involving longevity are. So I have in my notes here on page 513, but I'm not sure that's accurate. It'll be somewhere around there, though. Family history. So that'll probably get a lot of you. My dad, 71, and he just had 4 heart attacks in a row all of a sudden. It was what he thought was perfectly healthy before. Obviously he wasn't, but he didn't go to the doctor, so he doesn't know. But just had some major heart attacks. They can't do any kind of surgery on him, I guess, as far as 2 weeks, so he's just on a bunch of meds. But your family history can get you. So look at all those variables, look at all those characteristics they talk about. Your parents, your grandparents, your siblings having diabetes, asthma, cancer, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to take a lot of years off your life. You can't help your family history, though. You know, who you're born into. Then marital status is the next one. If you're married, you live longer. Of course, we've seen that if you're unhappily married, it shortens your life, but usually married lives longer. So you get points for being married. Economic status, more income, longer longevity. I know it's not fair, but it's the way it is. Sun's coming out a little bit. Physique, that's about your body shape and your weight. And so you can read about that. We need to be average weight. If we're overweight or our belly is bigger than our chest, then it starts to knock off years. Exercise. Exercise, of course, is good. You know that. It's not surprising. So, but they were looking at your job, how active you are really overall. Alcohol, believe it or not, it says to drink some alcohol. Now, obviously, if you're under 21, I'm not going to advocate that, but drink some alcohol. Teetotalers, that's what that means. People who don't drink alcohol at all when you take that quiz actually lose a year. So a little bit of alcohol is good, and they give you what the moderate or what mild light drinking is. It might be surprised. One of those things we're surprised by, how many drinks. I think they say 1 to 3 a day is light, and that's beneficial. Smoking, of course, don't smoke. Your disposition is your personality, your approach to life. So they're going to ask you if you're basically a grumpy person or basically happy and satisfied. Be happy and satisfied. You'll live longer. Education, come to Nash. We'll help you live longer. Well, if you look at it, it's only if you have 4 or more years. Sorry. Environment. So live in the country. You have to take off some years if you lived in the city your whole life. Surprising. Sleep. Don't sleep too much. I know you've heard all about sleeping too little, but the little quiz says 10 hours. You sleep 10 hours and it's 10 hours a day, 9 hours a day, something like that. It's too much. Don't do it. They don't say anything about not sleeping enough, which is weird because you've heard of how lack of sleep is correlated with health issues. So I don't know why. They didn't say that, but that's what they have in the book. Temperature, I know this sounds strange, but the temperature you keep your house. We need to keep it cool, 68 or under. We live longer. We need to be, a little refrigerated. And last, of course, if you go get checkups in healthcare. If you go to the doctor and get checkups, then you have an increased longevity. And if you're generally healthy. So those are the factors involved in longevity. Just make sure you know what those are in general. But it's coming from that quiz. It's a fun quiz. So the next section in the notes, since, and I should have done this earlier, but since there's 60 to 65 years in this time frame, there's a vast difference between the lower end of that age and the upper end of that age as far as abilities and health and independence. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a big difference between a 65-year-old and a 95-year-old or a 105-year-old. So sometimes we break this age down into subsections or sub-levels because of all the variability that we have in this age range. So we have the young old, which is 60, 65 up to 74, and these are going to overlap, so it's kind of confusing. Then we have old, which is just, sometimes they just have young old and old. That's the only way people divide it up. So young old or old would be 75 plus. But then some people add a third one, which is the oldest old. Now don't tell grandma she's in the oldest old category. But oldest old would be 85 plus. So I guess old would be 75 to 85 if you use that third category. You might be surprised to know that if we make it past that life expectancy, we usually are pretty healthy, doing pretty well. 50% of people 85 to 89 don't have a disability. How about that? So if we can make it that far, we seem to be pretty healthy. All right, now so it's kind of like setting us up for some of the physical stuff. Now we got the details. What happens to our appearance? So now we're going to be looking at your grandparents, maybe some of your parents, maybe your great-grandparents. That hand is huge. Look at that. Okay. So are my legs. Skin. We talk about skin all the time. Just more changes in your grandparents' skin. I would say look at them this Easter holiday coming up, but maybe you aren't going to get near them because you don't want to make them sick. So you won't see them. But if you do look at their skin, look at their hands, look at their arms, their face, you're going to see changes. You can often see the blood vessels, like you can mine, under the skin, blue. You can see pockets or chunks of fat because their skin is so thin and they don't have that nice tight skin, so you can see the stuff underneath. And because the skin is so thin, it tears easily, so they cut themselves a lot and don't even know it because there's also changes in sensation. They don't feel pain as much, especially in like the hands and feet, the extremities. Weight changes. It moves more toward the middle of their body. Even from their face, it drops down. Their weight drops down to around their middle. It redistributes. There's often weight loss. I know middle age, the number one concern for middle age is weight gain and being overweight. But the number one concern for weight in late adulthood is being underweight. So we lose a lot of muscle mass, which means who's going to notice that more? Men. So men may lose more weight than women because we're losing muscle and they have more to lose. And food doesn't taste as good. Their sense of smell is declined, which we'll see, and their sense of taste, which go together. So food doesn't taste so good, they don't want to eat. Not much of an appetite. They're also less flexible than they used to be. Now, this is often when I find online, there's some older women gymnasts and dancers and stuff. It's always so much fun to see them dance, 90-year-olds dance and do gymnastics. It's amazing what they can do. But they're still not as flexible as they used to be, all right? And in general, none of us are when late adulthood. But weightlifting and stretching really helps these things. It's surprisingly helpful to lift weights in late adulthood. Now, I know that that's not, common sense and most of your grandparents aren't doing it, but really and truly it's very helpful. It makes a dramatic difference in their abilities, their physical abilities, their strength, their weight, their appearance. It's very helpful for people in late adulthood to lift weights. Now, obviously, they need to be healthy enough and do it under a doctor's guidance, but absolutely a big deal. You'd be surprised. It's big research on weightlifting and its value in late adulthood. Next in the notes are about the senses. Lots of changes everywhere. Vision, only 10% of people at this stage of life see well. Okay, so not being able to see well is completely normal. I mean, I don't have my glasses on, but, to be able to read because I don't need to. I'm not trying to see something too close up, but Night vision is very bad. This is your ability, dark adaptation it's called. This is your ability like to go into a dark theater and to be able to see eventually. Your eyes get used to the darkness and you can see. That's dark adaptation. And they are not very fast at that at all. So it makes driving at night difficult, so much that they usually stop driving at night before they stop driving during the day because their eyes don't change back from that bright light quick enough. Our ability of our eyes to adjust to different focal distances is not good, and that's because our lens is getting thicker and not bending as much. And we also have cataracts, which is a cloudy film that comes over the lens, kind of like if you smeared Vaseline over your glasses or contacts. So vision is just not good. Late adulthood. If you go into an eye clinic, you're going to see lots of older people because it's just a common problem. Hearing declines. We already said high-pitched noises for men, but overall, by age 65, 40% of people cannot hear a normal conversation. So, completely common. And 15% are legally deaf over 65. So, even just hearing regular things, they may misunderstand you. They may not participate in conversations because they can't understand what you're saying. My cell phone is really bad. For some reason, there's a couple people, like one of my daughters, that I can't understand what they're saying. Every time we're on the phone, I'm like, I can't understand you. I'm sorry, I cannot understand you. It is so frustrating for her. It's frustrating for me. My dad, when I call him, I can't understand him either. It's all muffly mumbled. And I think, gosh, that would be horrible if that's what everything sounded like. What a miserable way. I just wouldn't even participate. So think about that when you've got your older grandparents and parents. How difficult it would be if you couldn't hear very well and you can't see very well. Whew. Touch, we already mentioned touch, less sensitive, especially to pain, especially in extremities. So they can have cuts and injuries and not know it and get infected. That's not very good. Taste, less sensitive to taste. Sour and bitter, they're less sensitive to. This could be problematic if they could eat rotten food and not know it. And this can be another reason why sometimes they need more supervision, more help. And then smell. Smell declines around 16. So sense of smell declines, which contributes to the taste decline. Grandpa falls asleep in the conversation, falls asleep while watching TV. You think, oh my gosh, we regress to infancy and just need a lot more sleep than normal. Not true. People in late adulthood do not sleep well. Same for middle age, but it's even worse in late adulthood. It takes them longer to go to sleep. They spend more time awake at night. They get less deep sleep, like we talked about before. They wake up more during the night, so they're tired during the day. They're not getting good sleep, just like you. So they're going to feel sleepy. And their immune system, these are just a bunch of physical facts. Their immune system is not the best. That's why we're worried about this virus thing right now. But also just casual, everyday infections that wouldn't kill them in the past may do that now. So they used to, be able to fight these things off and they can't. Exercise helps their immune system though. Telling you. Keep in mind how important exercise is. It's important physically. It helps blood flow to the brain, the heart. It keeps your muscles working. It's very important, but also cognitive exercise for the mental stuff. We'll talk more about that when we get to that chapter. This is a whole chapter just on physical. There's that much physical change happening that we go back to like what we did when we talk about babies. There's so much happening that it gets its own chapter. Number one cause of death, heart issues. Heart gets us. It's our hearts. It poops out, peters out. Cardiovascular system, we clog up. So it's the heart. Number two is cancer and then stroke. But the heart disease, number one, heart issues. All right, this next section, it's still physical because it's talking about why our body ages, but it's theoretical because we don't really know, but these are some guesses. So these are kind of like different theories on why we age. Wear and tear. This is like my favorite, just because I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling wear and tear. So the idea is that we just wear ourselves out. Our parts and pieces get tired. We fight off infections. We abuse our bodies. We keep bumping our toes. We wear out our joints, use our joints over and over again. We have injuries. And the more you use something, the faster it's going to wear out. And then we just eventually, our parts poop out. We die. Daily stresses exhaust our bodies. And there's some support for this theory that it's wear and tear, that it's just exhaustion by the end. Women who've never been pregnant live longer. I hope it's not like each pregnancy shortens your life expectancy, because I've been pregnant many times, so that would not be good. But it definitely wears the body out to be pregnant. So it shortens your life expectancy. Overweight people die younger. It's harder on their body. Our skeletons are about the same size, but if we got a lot of extra weight, it's hard on our joints. It's hard on our heart, hard on our lungs. And another little bit of support is we can replace body parts and live longer. So it's like a part doesn't work anymore, we fix it. I love the idea of organ reserve, because how many times have there been a stressful event in your life that, afterwards you're going, that was not that big a deal. I wasted too much energy on that. That shortened my life, exhausted me. So that's the organ reserve idea. There's an possibility that each of our organs have a reserve tank to be able to return ourselves to normal status, to right us into homeostasis, to fix ourselves. We smoke cigarettes and our lungs have to try to fix themselves. You've heard that if you stop smoking after so long, then, your lungs are at this capacity and that capacity for normalness or whatever. So if it can only do it so many times, and you use up that tank to fix the organ that you've hurt. That's the idea. Once you use up that reserve tank, that organ can't be fixed anymore. So when you damage it, it's toast. I think that's neat. It'd be neat if we could see a gauge and see it change and go, I see my gauge going down worrying about this test. It's not worth it. That's all with the wear and tear theory. Another theory is we're genetically programmed to age and die. It's built into our instructions that we're going to age at a certain rate at certain times with certain things happening. We're pre-programmed to age and deteriorate. There's some support for this theory. Each species, as we said before, has a lifespan, a maximum number, and then there's also the life expectancy, the average number. But it's different for each species. So it seems to be built into their programming that they can only live so many times or so long. And some other support for this is that there are diseases that come upon us late in life that weren't there when we were younger and are, dangerous, like all these cardiovascular problems. So maybe we're kind of built to develop these later in life. It's in our instructions since we were born that we're going to develop whatever issue later. It's just kind of a neat idea. And then more support for the idea that it's built into our genes is something called telomeres. 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 It's a segment at the end of our gene sequence that seems to be correlated to how long a species can live. And shorter little life, spans for critters have a shorter little telomere, and longer species have a longer telomere, longer living. And it seems that we can manipulate those telomeres, the size of them for some little critters like fruit flies, and affect how long they live. So it's another bit of possible genetic proof that it's built into us. I'm trying to fight this cellular aging right now because, wear and tear, yes, I try to fight wear and tear. I try to make sure I sleep enough. I don't, if I feel pain, I stop. I don't use drugs. I'll drink a little bit of alcohol, but they said that's good. I don't smoke. But I'm trying to fight it. And then the other one was genetics. Can't do anything about that. But I try to fight it at the cellular level for sure. And what this theory says is that it's what's happening at the cells. So it's not your genetic instruction. It's not what you're doing to yourself, during your day. But and this, I guess, goes into that too. But it's happening at the cell level. So so there's a couple different ways that if it happens at the cellular level. But one of them is that we just keep making mistakes. Like our cells reproduce all the time. There's different rates for different cells of our body, tongue cells and hair cells and skin cells and liver cells and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of goes with genetics though, like multiplication, how many times it can multiply. That's kind of a genetic idea. But it has to do with the multiplication of cells. I guess they think of it as cellular. And when our cells duplicate, sometimes they make mistakes and those cells don't work right. And I guess they're saying that after a while, you'll get enough of these mistakes that you won't have enough good cells there to reproduce. And the organ won't live. Too many mistakes build up. There's support for this theory too. The free radicals are what I'm really trying hard to fight. So when our cells use the food that we eat to produce energy, it produces a byproduct called free radicals that are supposed to be damaging inside the cell. They ricochet around and damage the cell. And this just happens from normal metabolism of the cell to make energy. So unless you plan on never eating again, it's going to happen. But there are these vitamins and some minerals that jump on those free radicals and stop them from damaging the cells. And those vitamins and minerals are called antioxidants. And you can thank the baby boomers for figuring this out, making this popular. The antioxidants, vitamins A, C, E, selenium, stop that damage, supposedly. They also boost the immune system. So if you eat a lot of foods that have antioxidants in it, it's supposed to help prevent the damage that's going on from the free radicals. So I have a list of foods that are high in antioxidants, and I try to eat them every single day, and I try not to eat many things that aren't on that list. So I eat weird stuff. I eat flaxseed and sunflower seeds and lots of nuts, almonds and pecans, lots of broccoli, cauliflower, berries of all kinds. There's a huge spinach. I eat that almost every day. So I'm a little weird about that right now. My kids tease me, but it's because I'm trying to fight that aging stuff that's going on. Also at the cellular level, more proof is that immune system becomes less efficient. And the immune system are made up of cells doing their job, different kinds of immune cells. So when they don't do their job like they're supposed to because they don't work so well, then we can't fight off the infection. So that's why we need to protect older people from things that are kind of casual like the flu. It's very important to protect against those everyday things like the flu. And that's why we're concerned with this virus. Last little bit for chapter 17, and then we're done. You've made it through, is the changes in our brain. And we're going to be looking at brain changes in the cognitive way, but this is the physical way. Our brains shrink. They lose weight. Our reflexes slow down. Our perception speed, we already starts slowing down in the middle of adulthood. Even after 70, some of our reflexes completely go away. Like the knee tap, gone for a lot of people over 70. So the brain loses weight, so it's shrinking. And so obviously that's going to affect its functioning. But we do show that you can still have some dendrites reaching out and matching up to other neurons even into the 70s. So we can still make new connections even into the 70s. But overall, our brains lose weight and shrink. Now, the more cognitive job you had, the stronger or bigger your brain is when you die, and the better it works, barring any kind of diseases, brain diseases. So that's always helpful. That's it. I made it through. I am tired. I am worn out. That was chapter 17. And we're almost done. Bye.